Kebabs to abs. I was so fat I couldn't get out of the car. What do you wish you knew about training, or what would you do differently if you were talking to like the younger Jake?
The first ever time I ever started to see some real progress it was either my dad or it was a friend of my dad printed off this powerlifting book. I think it was Jim Steele's powerlifting book. And I did the full 12-week plan, and that was the first time that I actually saw some real consistent progress with my training.
I was stronger, I was fit, I was healthier. Number one for me would be to get a plan sooner. And like when I get the training videos now, I'll just zoom in on the face and I'm like, you're not training hard enough. And then I'll show them a picture of my face when I'm training, look like crazy frog's about to shit himself.
If your form still looks perfect on the last rep, we're not training heavy enough.
Yeah.
We're not training
Go
hard
harder,
enough. Like,
go heavier.
You've got more reps in you.
Yeah. I don't want to say it on air because just in case like I get this comes back and bites me.
8 o'clock in the morning, I'll have fish and a rice cake.
Welcome back.
Fish and rice cake.
Fish and a rice cake for another episode. I'm Jake, or Dave.
You're Dave. I'm Jake.
He's Jake. Yeah, for anyone, or just the Jakes. For anyone who catches us in person and asks which one's which happens all the time. Back again. What is it? Non-sciencey, non-ranty fitness advice.
No, ranty.
It is ranty. Yeah, non-sciencey, but it is ranty fitness advice.
Yeah.
That hopefully is going to be useful.
Something like that.
You think it's useful? It's
something along those lines.
what we've made a career out of doing. So hopefully there's some usefulness there to it.
Yeah.
And how are you feeling after the City game?
Oh, mate. I didn't want to talk about it, honestly.
I know when I asked you on the call yesterday, it was a brief conversation, wasn't it?
It's just...
You were at the game, weren't you?
I was at the game, yeah. So I was at the game that Dave is referring to, by the way, City versus Madrid, quarter-final in Champions League. We got a 3-3 draw at their place, back to ours. And they... You know what? The most frustrating thing is they played like a team who... I've got no decent players. They just accept the shit and they're just going to defend for the whole... And that's all they did, right? And don't get me wrong, it's a tactic, I get it. And like it worked. You know, it ultimately got them the win, even though it was on penalties. But yeah, it was just so frustrating. Like we had like 33 shots. De Bruyne missed an open net pretty much. Foden had a stinker like right in front of goal. So just a really frustrating match. But you know what? I'm not actually that upset. I was thinking about after the game, like when emotions are high, like you're a bit like fucking fuming. And then you kind of sleep on it. And because we won the treble last year...
You were in Istanbul.
I was in Istanbul. I was there for the treble, like to see us lift the trophy. You're just not that fussed. And like in another couple of years, I'm sure that will fade. Like, because you can't live on that forever. But like for a few years, now it's like, you know what? If we don't win it, I'm not really that bothered.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't get better than what it was last year. So
yeah, I mean, I suppose as well when you're watching them play a team like Madrid, you want to see Madrid play like you want to see Madrid play like. You want to see some fancy football.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I'm saying this. The last time I've watched the Madrid game was probably 10 years ago. So I don't know how they play now, but I'm imagining it always used to be quite like Barcelona.
Yeah, and like don't get me wrong,
football.
they're still very dangerous. And like the first game was class. Like the first game of their place was 3-3. Do you know what I mean? So again, they got 2 fucking fluky goals. Though, like 2 of them with massive deflections. So over the 2 legs, we were definitely the better team. But hey, is what it is.
Did Arsenal lose as well?
Arsenal did lose. They went out to Bayern Munich. Yeah, so which is quite the Harry Kane team. So we
didn't even know that. I said this to you last week, didn't I?
It was last week in on it.
So it was Kian, one of my clients, is a coach, and on his check-in he was chatting about watching. I'm assuming he's an Arsenal fan because he talks about Arsenal, which I actually used to be when I was a kid. I had Arsenal wallpaper, Arsenal bed sheets. Like,
how come? Just liked him.
No, I think it was my neighbour who was my brother's mate when we were young was like a massive Arsenal fan, and I kind of just got into watching it. When we used to go around to his, he was a big footballer as well, so we used to go around to his and just kick a ball about, watch football. Yeah. And I got into it through that, and then I started following Arsenal. Yeah. Literally, the season that they were like the unbeatables was the season I started like taking notice, or Invincibles, whatever. Yeah. And I followed them for probably a good 5 or 6 years, and then just fell right off. But Keane's an Arsenal fan, and he was saying on his check-in that they'd drawn against Bayern, so I had a look at the result, and I saw that Kane had scored for Bayern, and I was like, that's odd. I was like, there's another Kane in football. It's a decent striker. I was like, that's a coincidence. And I was like, no,
You've still got him in your fantasy football team, haven't you?
Probably, mate. I've still got Van Nistelrooy in my fantasy football team.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had no idea he'd gone to Bayern. I had to ask you last Friday, didn't I?
Yeah, he's at Bayern now, but he actually scored in the first leg, so he didn't score in the second leg, but obviously, like I said, Bayern won anyway, but he scored at Arsenal in the first leg, which not have gone down well at all.
Well,
with
no,
the
ex
Arsenal
Tottenham
fans.
player.
Yeah.
I know that much.
He actually played, I think, for Arsenal's academy when he was young.
Did he?
So he has still got a bit of like an association with Arsenal, but yeah, he's a Spurs guy really. But,
I was I was an Arsenal fan in the days of like Van Persie, Rosicky, Fabregas.
yeah. Oh, they were class.
Freddie Ljungberg,
Yeah,
Robert
Henry.
Pires, Henry.
Henry's Bergkamp.
Yeah.
Henry and Bergkamp are still like two of my favourite ever Premier League players.
For some reason, one of my favourite players ever is Rosicky.
Yeah, Rosicky was
Yeah,
good.
and I still don't know why, but I
Rosicky
always
was
just
good.
really liked him.
Yeah.
Rosicky and Van Persie were always
Yeah.
my two favourite
Van
players at
Persie was
Arsenal.
class as well. And Arshavin, he was quite good as well.
Yeah.
He was these like even like Arshavin, Van Persie and stuff. They were towards the back end of like the
they
really
were.
successful
Yeah.
kind of Arsenal era. But yeah, so now it's kind of title race is well and truly on. Liverpool are out of Europe as well, which is quite funny.
Are Arsenal second in the league?
Arsenal second, Liverpool third.
Yeah.
City are top. We've got 2 points on the other two. They're joint.
Yeah.
We're on 73. They're both on 71. There's 6 games to go, so it'll be a close run-in. I don't want to say it on air because just in case like this comes back and bites me, but I would be surprised if we didn't win it from this position.
Oh.
But you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Well, if Anise is listening, who's a Man U fan, I'll see what he thinks to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's irrelevant. United just don't even take. A lion doesn't concern themselves with the opinions of sheep.
if you've heard that, Anise, message him about it. Have him. He's got his shoot next Sunday actually, so I'll make sure he listens to that bit. Yeah. So what we're chatting about today?
So we're actually talking
Training.
about something. I was just having a chat with one of my clients, and they were like, and one of my clients said to me, "What do you wish you knew about training, or what would you do differently if you were talking to like the younger Jake?" And I thought that was quite an interesting topic. So, yeah, I think what we want to talk about is the things that we would do differently, knowing what we know now. Going back to when we first started. So when I first started training, I was like, did a bit when I was like 16, but it was like just going and doing biceps for like an hour. And then I developed, I actually got qualified as a gym instructor at 17. I was a PT at 18. So I was kind of in and around the industry quite early, but I was still making loads of, as you do, just like, it's like passing your driving test and still fuck up loads until you actually get decent at driving. And it was the same for training. And there was loads that I was still doing wrong. So I'm going to ask you first of all, actually, going back, point 1, if I was to ask you, what would you do differently? What would be the first thing that you'd say? Going back to younger Jake, first started training, what do you wish you knew? What would you do differently?
I think it'd just be having some sort of plan or structure. Yeah. I remember that the first ever time I ever started to see some real progress, more with my strength than my actual physique, it translates a little bit, was I'd already been training about it. So I started training. I started going to the gym when I was probably about 12 or 13 because I'd started going with my dad and we went to a leisure centre and I trained with my brother and my brother's mates. And then I joined a private gym that I ended up working at for 5 or 6 years when I was about 15. It wasn't until I was about 18 where, who was it? Someone gave me, it was either my dad or it was a friend of my dad, printed off this powerlifting book. I think it was Jim Steele's powerlifting book. And it was like a full 12-week powerlifting program
Like
for
an
bench squat.
Plan.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to give this a go. So I literally had all the percentages for the sort of percentage of U1 rep marks, mapped them out. And I did the full 12-week plan. And even though it wasn't for like hypertrophy, I wasn't doing, obviously you want to get a better physique out of it, but I was just doing it for strength mainly. That was the first time, it wasn't until I was about 18, that was the first time that I actually saw some real consistent progress with my training because I had a plan. I was going into every session like, right, I know what I'm doing today. I can see what I've done last week. I know what I need to try and beat. And by the end of the 12 weeks, I could see the progress from the start of it. So I think if I'd have had that like 2-3 years sooner, where I'd have been by that point would have been miles ahead.
Yeah, 100. I'm exactly the same. Like, I literally, for the first probably kind of 4 or 5 years of training for me, from like 16, 17 till I was 21, 22, I just did what I fancied.
You just wing it. Like, you go down with your mates and you just.
Well, that's it. I don't know. It was
shoulders,
great fun. It was great fun. Like, you just go in and just obliterate your chest for like an hour and a half, which is mental thinking about it now. And don't get me wrong, at that age as well, you can get away with it a little bit more. Like, your natural testosterone levels, your recovery. There's not very little stress externally. So, like, you're actually in a pretty decent position to make some, like, really, really good progress. And I did. My physique changed quite a lot. There was a lot of, like, imbalances with it because I just fucking hammered like my chest and my arms. So I was like hunched over it, rarely did my back, never did my fucking legs. I was like, I play football, so I'll be fine. that'll work my legs.
I love that sometimes where you get as well, like, have you trained your legs? No, but I do a lot of walking. So I don't think I need to. It's like,
Do you walk with a fucking barbell on your back? If so, train your freaking legs. But yeah, no, and then it was like, I got to about 22, 23, and there was a guy who actually started working at my gym. A guy called Steve. He was like a very, very knowledgeable personal trainer. He'd been in the industry for years. He was like 50 odd. He just knew his shit. And he was like, Jay, you've got a really good physique, but you would benefit from having a proper plan. So I was like, okay, fair enough. Build me one. So like he built me a bit of a plan. And again, like I had a good understanding of this. I was just enjoying what I was doing to a certain. I was like, no, let's give it a proper go. And my results just took off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They really did. Like I really started to see progress. I was actually writing down what I was lifting. I was progressively overloading. I was looking at, okay, I did this last week, so let's try and push this week. And you just start thinking very differently. And yeah, and naturally, from following a plan, I saw a better physique at the end of it. I was stronger, I was fitter, I was healthier. I had, like I say, I had just an overall, I was way better rounded. Yeah, so without a shadow of a doubt, number one for me would be to get a plan sooner.
Yeah, I think I
think you have to go through that enjoyment phase, though.
Of course you do, because that's what gets your natural interest in
Yeah.
the first place. It builds your consistency. But so I had a session actually with one of my clients yesterday. I met up with him to train with him and just to go through some of his plan and his exercises. And he was logging his lifts in the logbook that we give our clients as he was training. And he was literally saying, he was like, do you know what? He was like, just the logbook alone, he was like, has been an absolute game changer. He was like, because I'm actively getting stronger every week because I can remember, I can see what I've lifted the week before. And I do the same thing. If I go into a workout and just try and remember vaguely what I did last week, I lift the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't actively see any improvements week to week. Whereas if you've got something you can physically track and look back on, you're like, right, because sometimes I'll go in, I'll look at my logbook and I'll put the weight on first and I'll be like, oh shit, I'll just check my logbook, see what I did last week. And then last week I'm like, fuck's sake, I lifted heavier than this last week.
Yeah,
So I've got to do more now.
Yeah, that's it. No,
It happens all the time.
You just need that little reminder, don't you?
Yeah. So what's number 2 or your number 1?
That's still my number
So
one.
that's your number 1.
Without a shadow of a doubt, yeah, that would be number one. My second one would be in the early days. Once you found that kind of interest, once you found that kind of love for training a little bit, and maybe you've followed a plan, but you're enjoying things a little bit more. You're consistent with the gym. The next would be for me, either get a PT or a coach, depending on this depends where you're at on your journey. Okay, so if you've been training quite consistently, you feel like your form's pretty good in the gym and stuff like that, you're quite happy where things are, get a coach. Get a coach to dial down on your nutrition, because again, that will just catapult your results. So your nutrition, your training, all of that stuff comes hand in hand. However, looking back, I think even as a PT myself, I would have developed again faster, got more comfortable, more confident, tried different things sooner. If I also maybe then got a PT, like an actual just kind of in-person PT, which is what I was at the time, because they will look where, again, I never used to film my sets or anything back then. So you just used to go in and train. Whereas nowadays I'll go in, I'll film my sets and I'll actively look back at my sets and be like, even now I'll go back and critique my own form, my own technique. Back in the day, like none of that, just used to train, and like there was loads of deficiencies in my training without a shadow of a doubt. So just having someone there just to, like I say, this just depends where you are, but if I had someone in person, get my technique, certainly the big lifts right, my compound exercises, just make sure I was training in the right manner with the right intensity more than anything else, make sure I was actually pushing myself close to failure, maybe something that I didn't do enough of as well. And like I say, if I was more advanced, so if I was a bit more consistent in the gym and I was enjoying it, I was already at that point where I was like, okay, my technique's okay, then I think I'd get a coach.
Yeah.
Again, I'd stop. I would have, because I was wasting so much money on supplements and stuff like that, and I would have just got a coach instead. I probably would have cost me the same fucking amount. And then the coach would have actually kind of said, nope, this is what we're going to do with your nutrition. This is what we're going to do with your training. And obviously we know the benefits of that at this moment in time. We don't need to plug that too much.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, without a doubt, that would have been one of those two.
Yeah, it's literally that. You train so much harder when you've got someone else there to push you and who can give you the advice you need on how to perform a movement. Again, like with my client Stephen yesterday, who I don't know if he listens to this, to be fair, but if he does, he did very well yesterday. But we went for a few movements like back squat and deadlift. His deadlift, I think up until yesterday, I think he was deadlifting about 80 kilos, I think was his max. And he pulled 100 for like 5 reps yesterday.
Yeah.
Because we watched him do 80 and I was like, yeah, your form's spot on. We can go heavier. We can go. And it's just having someone there to take you outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Just to keep
I've met with a few clients recently, and because they go to the same gym as me, and I'm like, let's just get one of your sessions up, and let's just do one of the sessions.
Literally
off your
what
plan.
I do with my clients at a local.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, all I want you to do, and the first thing I say to them is, you go first. Like, put it on the weight that you've been lifting and whatever you feels right, and just give me a set. And 9 times out of 10, I'll go, it's far too light. Let's go up. And it's just like, because again, it's just that intensity thing more than anything else. It's learning actually what is required from your training. I had one girl who was doing walking lunges, and she'd log like either no weight or very light weights. By the time we left, she was holding like 18 kilograms in each arm. And I was like, and she was like, okay, like I'm way stronger than what I thought. I'm like, yeah, you just need to, but now you've got that, you can do it yourself.
It is that like 9 out of 10 video feedbacks I give my clients when they send over training videos. It's not to look at the form because I already know that the form's good. It's literally just to be like, are they training hard enough? And 9 times out of 10, it's you could add an extra 5 or 10 kilos to that.
Yeah.
Or it's looking through the logbook and saying, right, last week you did 3 sets of 10 at 80 kilos. And your target is 10 reps. This week, I don't want you doing any lighter than 85.
Yeah, 100%.
Or 90, like depending on the increments.
Yeah, exactly that. And like when I get the training videos now, I'm like, sometimes I don't even look. I'll have a quick look at the form, but that's fine. And then I'll just zoom in on the face and I'm like, you're not training hard enough. And then I'll show them a picture of my face when I'm training and look like Crazy Frog's about to shit himself. I'm like, this is what we want.
Yeah, and I think, so the third thing or the next thing that I would say, and actually was something I did for a long time until within the last couple of years, was obsessing over form instead of intensity. So especially I think I had a bit of not a complex, but almost a worry as a coach. I was like, because I am a coach, and I think for a lot of that time I was still PTing, I was like, I can't be seen in the gym to have shit form. Like I need to be on point with it. So I would only train to the degree at which my form would start to break down.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, right, I can't get a perfect rep. I can't. And at that point I was really trying to dive into like the biomechanics of stuff. So I was like, if it's not perfectly lined up, if I'm not getting a perfect contraction, I'm not going to carry on. Like that's the set done. Yeah. And since that point, and it's just held me back so much looking back now, because you just, the last 3 or 4 reps of a set that make the difference, I was just missing out on because I didn't want
because your technique was breaking down.
I didn't want my technique to break down. I didn't want someone to look over and be like, fucking hell, he's meant to be a coach and his training looks like shit. Whereas actually now, I say to a lot of my clients, like, as long as it's a movement that it's safe to do it within, so like not a back squat or maybe not a leg press, but something that is safe to do, like a pull down a row, side delts, whatever. If your form still looks perfect on the last rep, we're not training heavy enough. Yeah. We're not training hard enough. Like, you've got more reps in you. Yeah.
That's what I say to people. I'm like, listen, the first 4 or 5 reps, depending on how many reps you've got, they should look pretty good. Last couple, I want you to look like shit. Yeah. And that's how you know you're training hard enough. But yeah, 100%, that'd be the second thing. And then I think the third thing, just read them a little plan.
That pretty much was. So we had get a PT or a trainer, and then it was understanding what hard training is.
And I think that would be, and I suppose if we were to dive into it a little bit more, we didn't really touch on it, but because it's more about training, but it would just be getting nutrition right alongside training. 100%. Because I had no idea how much protein I was consuming. Yes, I was having a few shakes here and there. I was probably getting more than enough because I was eating chicken with main meals and stuff. Tuna and rice, like the standard stuff. So I probably was eating enough protein, but I had no idea. I had no idea my macros, my calories. When I wanted to diet, I would just eat fuck all basically and just increase cardio, and it worked but it was guesswork. Yeah, it worked, but I hated it. It was massively fucking restrictive. I was tired. I was angry all the time, and it's not something that was ever going to be sustainable for me. So just to get to grips with my nutrition a lot sooner as well, and understand that you can't out-train a bad diet.
You can't, and like if we say this time and time again, like your training needs to be intense, it needs to be hard, but obviously the end result of your training is to build muscle, and you're only going to build muscle regardless of how much you train or how heavy you train or how heavy you lift or whatever, or how do you train, sorry. You're only going to build that muscle if you're eating right, you're eating enough protein, you're eating enough calories, and then you're having enough rest in between the sessions. Yep. Like, if you don't have those 2 things nailed down, it's just not going to happen. Yep. Like you can, all you're essentially then doing, if you don't have those nailed down, is you're just driving your body into the ground and continually breaking down muscle session after session after session without it growing back. Yeah, it's like you're essentially just chipping away at a stone. Like over time, it's just going to get smaller and smaller.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's probably something I didn't really realize. But I suppose at that age as well, like, recovery is just naturally a lot better, so you get away with it a bit more. That's why you can do like the bro splits and stuff back then to a certain extent. It's all new stimulus, you recover really well, you're sleeping really well. Like I say, stress is very minimal. Whereas nowadays, I'm like, get me in bed by 9 o'clock, I need my fucking sleep. Which actually kind of leads us nicely onto our little
fuck up section.
And it's not really a fuck up, right? So this is, I was saying to you, and I was looking through like news articles and stuff this morning, and there was a few kind of really bad fuck up ones, but I came across this one. It's in the Sun, so respect.
Reliable source.
Yeah, but no, I actually know the guy. I follow the guy, right? So his name is part of the food review club, and they've got like hundreds of thousands followers, and he's fucking hilarious. Like, he's a very funny guy. And he goes around, he's been in Manchester, he does loads, he goes all over the country though. He's not from Manchester, he's from down south. He just goes and reviews food. But naturally, he, you know, when he started doing this, he got a bit fat. So the actual kind of, the opening thing here, it says, "Kebabs to abs. I was so fat I couldn't get out of the car."
That's brilliant.
Yeah, and the thing is, right, and because obviously this is going back to the
Have
nutrition.
you got a
stuff.
photo of him? Because I don't know what he looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put it onto the edit so you can have a look at this, right?
You'll have to send me that then.
Yeah, I'll send it. Yeah, but he was obviously, as part of his job, because he went full time with it. It started off as like a side gig, but he is very, very funny. Like, he's got a very like catchy way of saying things. Naturally, as a byproduct of his job and just eating shit outside of his job, he went up. I think he said here it's like 24 stone or something like that. And now, I mean, I'll just show you that picture again. Like, he's pretty lean. Like,
right,
he's got abs.
Yeah, by any standard, he's fucking lean.
Yeah, he looks really, really well. And he's not stopped doing his food reviews. And people are like, well, hang on a second, how's he still eating? Because some of these food reviews are like, he's not holding back, like, they're big fucking portions. It's a bit like the other guy, what's his name?
Beard Meats Food.
Beard Meats Food.
He was in very good shape.
Exactly, right? So he's still doing that every single week. He says anything between kind of 2 and 3 takeaways per week or food reviews a week. But he basically went and got himself a coach and started to understand food a little bit more. So now, where he thought he was eating healthy in and around his kind of takeaways, he had no idea of the actual calories, and he was just gaining weight. I think he said he got some blood tests done, and he was like, basically, like, you're gonna fucking die if you can. Like, literally.
Sort your shit out.
Yeah, sort your shit out. So anyway, he got a coach. He started understanding his nutrition a lot more. He now basically builds these takeaways into his week and his calorie consumption with his coach. They work together, and they make sure, because of that, he's still either operating at probably maintenance now, but certainly for a while at a deficit. And I think it just, because again, it's just one of those things where people don't understand that you can do this stuff. I wouldn't recommend it. It's, bear in mind, this is his job, right? But I wouldn't recommend everybody now starts building in like 3 takeaways a week into the diet, because it does mean the rest of the week you're probably quite restrictive. But it can be done, and he's like living proof of that. He's lost over 10 stone, and he's still eating 2 or 3 very large takeaways per week.
Yeah.
Because the rest of his week has been dialed in to allow him to do so.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just kind of, yeah, so it's not really a fuck up, but I just wanted to, because I really like him, so I'm like, fair fucks to him, you know?
No, yeah, definitely fair fucks to him. It's impressive, and it's just one of those, like, it's easy to plan out on paper, because let's say he's having meals at 6,000 calories for that one particular review.
They probably are, yeah.
And maybe he's having 2 a week, he's doing 2 reviews a week. And if his maintenance calories are, with the size of him, I'm going to assume 2,500 to 3,000 a day. So he's like 21,000 calories a week. 12,000 of those calories are from just 2 meals of those weeks. So that's 9,000 calories he's got left for the remaining 5 days of the week.
Yeah.
I don't know the maths on that.
Yeah.
But you work out the maths and you've got your average calories for your day to day. And I know with Beard Meats Food, because
he did an episode on this, didn't he?
He's talked about it a few times. I've listened to him chat about it, and he just has like 1 meal a day at most. Outside of the days he does food challenges, it'll just be like loads of salad and like a bowl of yogurt,
like a
and
really
that's about it.
Yeah.
Which isn't a lot of fun. Like that's not, and I think that's why in theory it's easy, because you're like, well, just work out the numbers on these days. This is all you're having, but then to actually be able to put that into practice, and obviously most people don't. It's not going to be to that extreme. But to then be like, right, for the next 4 days, I'm just going to have a bowl of yogurt every day.
Yeah.
By 2 days in, that's going to be fucking difficult to do. Like, so fair play to him, because that is very good going.
Yeah, and to be fair, like his other meals, that he clearly kind of put it together in a way. It's like, you know, a chicken salad for lunch, Greek yogurt and honey in the morning. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's just a pretty normal way of eating.
Yeah.
In and around it. Yeah, but so that wasn't really much of a fuck up. It was just actually a bit more of a well done, and just proof that actually, you know, if you control your nutrition, if you control your nutrition properly, like, you can fit this stuff in, and you can, you know, have a fairly kind of balanced lifestyle.
You easily can. It's just then the days where you've got to be tighter, it's making sure you stick to it. That's where the
problem is. People don't actually track the things where they, generally speaking, when they have a takeaway and stuff, it just doesn't get tracked.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the week, they've still hit the calories without the takeaway, and they're like, hang on, why have I not lost weight? It's like, well, there's 3,000 calories missing.
Yeah.
Do you know? Yeah.
So, fucking fair play to him. I'm going to have a look at that actually afterwards.
Yeah, so I'll send you the stuff and you can edit it on.
Yeah, kebabs to abs.
Maybe we'll, you never know, he might share it. It might be like, you know.
Get him on the podcast.
Get him on a podcast. Fish and a rice cake. Get him to sample that live.
Yeah. Give us
like
a review. If he doesn't give Salt and Vinegar Snacker Jacks a good review, I'm kicking him straight
Yeah, but
out.
with fish on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have fish on
Yeah,
it.
that's what I'm saying.
I'm kicking him out. I don't care how big he is.
Right, I think that's us done with that episode. So
For another one.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Like, subscribe, tweet,
All that stuff. X.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get it right one time.
Right, cheers, guys.
Catch you in a bit.
See you in a bit.